My never-ending stream of evil builds continues with another one, but this time we're taking the typical lock-it-in build and turning it on its head with a heavy focus on fear mechanics to make the ultimate Dread Knight in Baldur's Gate 3. Quick heads up, this is a modded build using both the Oath of Conquest and Undead Warlock mods. You can find the links for both in the description, so if you're on console, I apologize and I don't want to waste your time. But in September, when full mod support lands, consoles will be getting some access to mods, so hang tight as this build might be accessible then. If you're new to the channel though, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge in my videos. So with that being said, we'll be focusing on Paladin, Warlock, and Fighter. The split here is 1 level into Paladin to turn on heavy armor, 3 levels into Undead Warlock for Pact of the Blade so we can become charisma machines, 6 more levels into Paladin to unlock the Aura of Conquest, and finally 2 levels in Fighter to give us Action Surge. This build is going to lean real heavily on tons of fear mechanics, so don't expect huge damage numbers here. This is going to control the field in a pretty badass way, while also being thematic to the scope I have in mind for a Dread Knight. But that's the entire gist of this video. There's more nuance to certain feat selections and items to make this all come together, but if that's all you wanted to know, please feel free to shut the video down. You can also navigate to any part of the video that interests you the most using the chapters in both the timeline and the description. If you are heading out and you found this video helpful, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Any combination of those 3 helps my channel out immensely. I also have a huge Baldur's Gate 3 playlist linked at the end of the video and below if you need help with any other subjects. But for those sticking around, let's get started on my Dread Knight build for Baldur's Gate 3. Loading into the game, let's take a look at character creation. Now, as a heads up, I've chosen the origin of the Dark Urge. I think that this is going to be a really cool one for this, thematically and everything. You do not need to go with the Dark Urge. You can definitely go with a custom origin if you want. But just to cut to that point in the background portion of this video, I'm just going with Dark Urge, which forces us into Haunted One, giving us medicine and intimidation. So that bit of heads up right there. Again, go custom if you want. And race, I'm going with Gith yet again. This is a kind of similar build to the Sith Lord build that I did. In that Sith Lord build, I said, hey, I have a modded version of this build I'm going to put up. This is basically that modded version. But what I like about the Gith is that we do get access to a lot of really fun narrative options. We get access to astral knowledge, giving us proficiency in all skills of a chosen ability. We'll get a cantrip for Mage Hand, a cantrip for Misty Step, and a cantrip for Enhanced Leap. So all those are really great, and there's Gith specific items that are really awesome in the game. If you've not gone Gith, you should go Gith. Otherwise, though, please go with any other race that makes sense to you. This is a single-player narrative game. Don't min-max this. Play the game that you want to play, as I always say. Our class is going to be Paladin, and then our subclass is going to be Oath of Conquest. This is the modded Oath, of course, but it's in 5th edition, and it's pretty much a 1-to-1. One thing to take a note of when it comes to a lot of these modded subclasses is that these are already existing subclasses in 5th edition. They've already been vetted through at least some sort of balance system. So they're by and large pretty set to go into the game. There are certain things that Baldur's Gate does a little bit differently than 5th edition, but by and large, like I said, they're going to be just fine. So don't expect this to break the game in any way, shape, or form. So let me actually go into this. Our tenet. So the tenet is going to be the biggest thing here that we're going to deal with. Oath of Conquest Paladins abide by the following tenets. And this actually works. It's not just like, hey, here's flavor text, but this actually has the Oath of Vengeance. No, this is actually going to be the game will respond to this. The mod description says that it works like this. Douse the flame of hope. It is not enough to merely defeat an enemy in battle. Your victory must be so overwhelming that your enemy's will to fight is shattered forever. A blade can end a life. Fear can end an empire. So basically, with the Oath of Conquest, you're taking no prisoners. You are just destroying everything. It's like the Oath of Vengeance dialed up even more. And I don't know much about the actual lore of the Oath of Conquest, so I apologize if I got that wrong for those that are big D&D 5e players. So just keep that in mind. It's going to be a pretty fun situation, and it's a really fun Oath nonetheless. It's probably one of the more famous ones in 5e. But you get Chosen Adversary, which is going to be awesome here. So you have advantage on attack rolls against the target, and when you hit them with a melee attack, they will become frightened until the end of their next turn or when they take damage. So this is going to be our Channel Oath. It's a bonus action, and it lasts for 3 turns. So it gives us a lot of flexibility. It's very similar to Vow of Enmity from Oath of Vengeance. Our background, of course, is going to be Haunted One, and then our skill selection. Since we're going with Haunted One, that gives us Intimidation, so we're going to definitely choose Persuasion since we are a Paladin. We're going to have tons of Charisma to take advantage of, so we can have fun with that. Athletics is an option you can go with, but I actually like Insight. Insight for me really helps out when it comes to certain conversational options that you might miss otherwise. So I like having that point into Insight. And your other one, of course, just goes into Medicine, which is neither here nor there. So those are our skills. Let's now talk about our ability points. With this build, we're going to be choosing a Warlock into Pact of the Blade, meaning that we're going to focus our damage into our Charisma characteristic, because that is going to be working for our spellcasting and for our melee, because that's how Pact of the Blade works. So you can see that we've jacked our Charisma up to 17, hopefully getting that Hag's Hair to get it to 18, and our Charisma is going to be at 16. Those are our two big scores here. That's where we're putting our bonus points into. That gives us the most points. Now we're going to be using heavy armor. So the dexterity bonus that we get from 14 deck, or from 14 dex is not going to be helpful, but this gives us +2 to our initiative. That's why we've decided to go with 14 dexterity. And a lot of people would say, you know, why does strength have any points in it? We're not going to be using strength for any of our checks. I don't like to have low strength in a game where you have a huge inventory to constantly manage. People say, well, just go back to your camp and you can just keep dumping things off. That slows down the rate of play for me, so I have 10 strength. You could even, if you wanted to, do this. There's nothing wrong with it. I like having a little bit of strength because heavy armor is actually heavy, and there are lots of things you're going to be holding in the game, so you might as well have at least some portion of strength that you don't have to slow down your rate of play. It's a personal choice. You don't need to take it. You could simply do this, but you're a paladin, so you have tons of additional insurance on all of your wisdom checks that you're going to be taking. But those are our ability points. Let's go into some progression by switching over to my highest level character, which is a Wood Elf. So right out the gate, we're immediately going to switch once we get to level 2 into Warlock. And man, look at this armor. Looks so, this is black and sage green. Look at how that, oh man, it looks so good. If you have the Reaper armor, if you put specific dyes, it makes the tapestry kind of jump out. And that's what I went for there thematically. I'm so cool. I'm not. I'm definitely not. So we're going to go with Warlock here. If you want to see the Artificer build, let me know in the comment section below. I started working on it. I don't know how I feel about the mod, but I'd love to show it off if you guys would like to see it. But either way, jumping into our cantrips, we're going to be going here with Eldritch Blast. It gives us a ranged ability to use, and Blade Ward, because I like the ability and the functionality of the defensive characteristics of Blade Ward. Going to be helpful because we're going to be up close and personal. Now, if you wanted to do this build without mods, you could go with Great Old One, because Great Old One gives you Mortal Reminder, which every time you do a critical hit, you basically cause a fear. But since we are not doing that, we are using Undead, and the Undead is going to give us a patron, and on top of that, where does it show it? Well, I'll show it in the next screen. The patron is going to give us access to a special ability, and I'll show that off once we actually jump into the ability section. So with our patron for Undead, we can choose any number of things: Arch Lich, Vampire Lord, Death Knight, Eldritch Undead, so on and so forth. These don't have any effect on anything in the game. It's solely a thematic choice. We're going with Death Knight because we are a Dread Knight build, quote unquote. But you could go Vampire Lord or Arch Lich. It's going to have a different visual effect when you use this. And this is one of the big things for this build. So Form of Dread, Death Knight, manifests an aspect of your patron's dreadful power. You gain 1d10 plus 1 temp hit points. That plus 1 is based off of your Warlock level. So that will be, anytime you use this at max levels of all of what we're doing, it'll be 13 temp hit points. And you're immune to Frightened. Once during each of your turns, when you hit a creature with an attack, you force it to make a Wisdom saving throw, and if the saving throw fails, the target is frightened of you until the end of your turn. So basically, this is our first form of fear being added into the build, and it's going to get real wild, so bear with me. So we're going to turn that on with Form of Dread, Death Knight. Now for our spells, we are going to... Armor of Agathis is a real nice one, but we're going to get Armor of Agathis through the Paladin. So I don't want the redundancy here, because by the time we get it through the Paladin, we will not have the option to swap it off as a Warlock. Remember, Warlock spells are only swapped off every time you level. So we're actually going to go with Arms of Hadar. And this is going to give us necrotic damage. Originally I had this build really focusing on tons of necrotic damage, but we're still going to choose portions of that. So we're going to go with this, and also Hex, because Hex is a really good one to give disadvantage on abilities of your choosing. And we can make it so that I can do this on wisdom, so the things are more likely to be feared. This helps us out, and it just gives us additional necrotic damage. Kind of fits a rough theme. And necrotic and psychic is going to be the big theme for this build. So going into our second level here, we're going to get another spell, and I like Hellish Rebuke in this case. Charm Person falls off too quickly. False Life is a form of temp hit points that we already have too many forms of it now, just because of our aspect of dread, and everything else just doesn't seem as useful to me. Now, as far as Eldritch Invocations, we're going to go with Agonizing Blast, because this is going to allow us... There we go. This is going to allow us to add our charisma modifier to the damage that Eldritch Blast deals. Eldritch Blast is pretty much just there to give us a ranged damage option. And then we're going to go with Devil's Sight. Since we are going to be a melee character, anytime we have to deal with darkness or anything that would otherwise blind our character, we do not need to deal with it anymore. You can see normally in darkness, both magical and non-magical. That's a great one. If you wanted to go with something different, you could go with Repelling Blast, which makes it so you can move things with your Eldritch Blast. But I think Devil's Sight really fits the bill for the scope of this character. Now for Warlock level 3, we're going to choose a new spell here, and we're going to get Hold Person through the Paladin, so we're not going to choose it. Hear me out. Phantasmal Force is really cool. It's a really cool option I have in my mind, because this will do psychic damage or the last damage you did, which can be a lot of necrotic. So you can have a lot of fun with Phantasmal Force. Probably the more, I don't know, safe pick is Misty Step, but if you're going with a Gith, then you're going to get Misty Step. So I would say it's between Misty Step or Phantasmal Force. I'm going to choose Phantasmal Force because I never ever choose it, and people don't often recommend it. I think it's a really cool ability that is slept on if you're trying to stack a specific type of damage. Now for our Pact Boon, it is of course going to be Pact of the Blade. This is now going to make it so that we are going to do +3 additional damage, because we're now using our charisma for our melee damage. We'll accept this and we will move on. Now, you could bring Warlock up to level 6, and you could bring Paladin to level 6 and stick there. One of the cool things about bringing Warlock to level 6 in this build is that you have an ability as an Undead Warlock to convert all damage to necrotic, and that is really sick. So if you really wanted to do a necrotic build and really focus on that, you can definitely do it. I have a necrotic thing in mind with Undead Warlock and something other, so if you want to see that, let me know in the comment section below. But that's an option you can choose. I just wanted to let you know at this point you would keep going if you wanted to do that. So we're now going to pivot back into Paladin. But before we do, I just want to have the conversation about feats, because assuming you want to keep going with Warlock, let's just at least get this done with now, because we're only going to have access to 1 feat in this entire build, right? Because we're bringing our Paladin to level 7, so we're going to be just short of it. And we're going to have our Warlock at 3 and our Fighter at 2. So only 1 feat. So let's talk about feat. So when it comes to feat selection, you can go with a bunch of different options like Warcaster, Heavy Armor Master, because remember we are going with heavy armor. You can go with Resilience if you'd like to, but I think ultimately it just comes down to ability improvement, especially if you're going to be able to get that Hag's Hair to get your charisma up. That's going to bring us here to 19, plus that Hag's Hair brings us to 20. And there's a lot of ways to increase your charisma throughout the game. And I think this is just really the best way to go. Ultimately, too, you could do stuff like Alert. Alert is a really good one for bonus initiative and Can't Be Surprised. But again, I think this is just so crucial because it's going to help us out on so many facets of this character, especially when it comes to spell casting, to damage for Eldritch Blast, for your own personal damage, for smites. It's just a great source of overall utility for the build. Continuing our levels, though, we're going to bring that additional level into Paladin. Right now we're going to our all the way up to 7 Paladin right now. But this is going to turn on our smites and our fighting style. So I've devised this build as a sword and board build using the Shield of Undevout, which gives a disadvantage on fear. You can go with great weapon fighting if you really want to use a two-handed weapon with this build. By all means, you would do that right now. But right now you get to choose between defense or dueling. So you want 2 more additional damage, or do you want to have 1 additional armor class? We're already going to be wearing heavy armor, so it's going to be up to you. Do you want to have just a little bit more damage, or do you want to have 1 more AC? I'm just going to choose dueling because I think it's going to be fun to show off big damage numbers in the gameplay section of this. So that's my personal choice right now, but please by all means go with whatever makes sense for you. Now when it comes to your spellbook, you're going to get access to command in a level. That's weird, it should have been there right there. You'll get access to command eventually. But I'm going to show you why I like Shield of Faith in just a little bit. We've got Wrathful Smite. I just like choosing the smites as a really fun, just kind of first option. And you'll get Compelled Duel can be a fun one. You just don't want to overlap. The problems with all the smites is they cost action and bonus action, and unless it's Wrathful Smite is also, unless it's Thunderous Smite, they're all concentration abilities. Wrathful Smite, though, is another form of both psychic damage and it is a Frighten, so you can use that as you see fit. Just keep in mind, they are concentration. They will not overlap. Heroism is also another really nice one, but it is a form of 10 pit points, and you can only have 10 pit points from one source. So our next one here is level 3 with Paladin. There it is, there's command, which also gives us our Armor of Agathis, which is going to have those 10 pit points yet again, but also cold damage, which is going to be cool. And we get Conquering Presence. So, exude a terrifying presence, forcing each nearby enemy to make a wisdom saving throw or become fearful of you. The fearful creature can repeat this saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on a success. So we get our another Channel Oath, and we get a subclass feature called Guided Strike. Strike with supernatural accuracy, gaining plus 10 bonus when making an attack roll. So you can see we're going to start getting real scary with this build, physically and metaphorically and all sorts of things. Our level 4 Paladin puts our points here into Charisma. Just more spells. You can choose whichever you'd like. Pop them in as you see fit. Bless is okay, but I just don't like to use any kind of concentration abilities that I know aren't going to directly help out the overall focus of the character. Bless wouldn't be an example of a good one. But spells that we now get are Hold Person, like I said before, and we also get Spiritual Weapon, which is a really cool bonus action that we can do if we want to, but now we get access to our extra attack. If you're super concerned about extra attack, and I usually like to layer extra attack in at level 5. Right now, our cumulative level is level 8, right? So this is a little bit later in the game. But the focus of this character is not big damage numbers, even throughout the majority of the game. So don't worry about it. If you really are uncomfortable with it, you can go 5 Paladin, but the problem is you're just not going to have... You're going to have to re-roll your stats, and I don't like to always do videos where, okay, I respec at this level, respec at that level, do this, do that. I feel like it just adds a layer of complexity, and it's a little gamey at that point. So I like to just try to make things as straightforward as possible for you guys. Now, our level 2 spells, I really like Aid because it increases my max hit points. It doesn't give me temp hit points, which is a difference, which I really like. You also have protection from poison because it lasts until long rest, so you can use that if you'd like. Branding Smite is just another form of smite with action, bonus action, concentration. I also really do like Magic Weapon. Just keep in mind, everything I have selected pretty much is a concentration ability. Only one concentration ability can be up at a time. Old Person is a concentration ability. Phantasmal Force is a concentration ability. And you might be thinking to yourself, man, that's scary. You have all these concentration abilities. When am I ever going to cast a spell? You're a Paladin. A lot of your spell slots are going to be used towards smites anyway, so just having one concentration ability up while you're doing smites with the rest of it is A-okay. Going further into this build, we go to level 6 to get ourselves our very first Paladin aura, which is Aura of Protection. And at level 7, we get our next sweet aura, Aura of Conquest. You emanate a menacing aura in every direction. If a creature is frightened of you, its movement speed is reduced to 0 while in the aura. So it basically allows you to use your Channel Oath to root everything, locks them in place. And that creature takes a psychic damage equal to half your Paladin level if it starts its turn there. I think it's half your Paladin level rounded up. So that would be, in this case, it would be 4. It's 3.5 goes to 4. Otherwise, it would be 3 if I'm wrong on the rounding. But it's just 4 psychic damage, free damage. It's a really cool ability. We're going to have tons of fear. Don't worry, I'll talk about that in a bit. So we accept this and we jump into another level here on Paladin. But we're going to switch over to Fighter. And with Fighter, we're going to get another style. And that's where I'm going to choose the other of the ones that I didn't choose before. Defense or dueling, right? You can go with Protection if you want. It's just a reaction and a disadvantage, impose disadvantage on an attack against an ally within 5 feet. I don't know, man. I'm a Dread Knight. I'm not thinking about my allies right now. I'm thinking about overwhelming conquest. So we do this. We accept it. We jump into level 2, and we get access to Action Surge. Remember, at level 1, we also got access to the heal ability from Fighter. But this concludes all of our leveling. Let's take a look at all these abilities on the bar. So our abilities are far and wide here, man. So to start us off, we have that Form of Dread. Let me just press this ability and show you how it works here. I'm going to back up a little bit so you can get the full breadth of it. We cast this, and now our character is a Death Knight. And he's got huge, right? So he's way bigger. So Aura of Conquest here. That's active. We have our Form of the Dread Knight, or Death Knight is active. And we have our Immune to Frighten condition active. So everything is just going. It's popping off right now because of this Form of Dread. And we're going to do, we have 10 hit points. We had that immediate 1d10 plus 3. It looks like we got a 9 plus 3. So that happens. And when we attack something, we're going to be able to trigger fear through this. We have our chosen adversary, which is going to give us advantage on targets. They might become frightened until the end of the next turn. Remember what frightened does too. It completely, they lose everything. Cannot move. Frightened entities also have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls. It just really locks someone down. We're going to have Conquering Presence here, which is that forcing of a fear onto people. We're going to have Aura of Protection here to get a +4 to saving throws. We're going to have our Bind Our Pack weapon, which I'll talk about more in the actual item section. We're going to have Second Wind. We're going to have our Action Surge. We're going to have our Divine Smite, which we're going to be able to bring all the way up to level 2. So at least it's going to do 9 to 40. Remember, it's not really there to do tons of damage for us. It's just there to be there. Lay on Hands, as well as Divine Sense. And then all of our spells here, too, are going to be really nice. Arms of Hadar is going to be great. We're not going up to level 5, which would give us Hunger of Hadar, or Hadar. However you want to pronounce it. And Armor of Agathis is going to be cool, but remember, you only can get temp hit points from one source. So you'd wait until your temp resources are out from this Dread ability to even use that. But remember, this lasts 10 turns. So by and large, you're going to be done with any pivotal thing in combat by the time this expires. And also, it's a bonus action. So you can start a round of combat, pop into your Form of Death Knight, and then immediately go off on things with your main action. Have a lot of fun. Do whatever you want. I'm going to talk about this too when we talk about Shield of Faith. I'm going to talk about that in the actual section for items. But these are our abilities. It's going to be a lot of fun to bring these all together. Let's talk about weapon and then armor. So when it comes to the items for this build, I actually have all the ones that I want to talk about, which is a rarity. And the first one is our main weapon. It's the Blackguard or Blackguard's Sword. On a hit infused with one of your smites, the target must succeed a Constitution saving throw or become dazed. It's just another way to lock things down, and it has a 1d4 necrotic damage, which I really like. One thing too here is we are a Warlock, so we will be binding the packed weapon we're going to use, but before we do that, we want to toss it on the ground. We're going to equip, I'll put this over, lose track of it, the Drake Throat Glaive. And we're going to put, I guess we could do Acid because it's kind of thematic, right? I'm going to go ahead and pick that up. Oh, yeah, let's do it. Oh, I'm way overweight. I forgot. So let me actually do... Let me send this to some... I'll send that to camp. I'll send this to camp. There we go. And we'll equip that. And the reason I like this sword is, yeah, it's only a blue sword, but it's a +2. So when I use a Drake Throat Glaive, it is now a +3. And it does the additional element of damage too. So that +3 means that it adds to the attack roll. Take a look over here. +2 to the attack roll and the damage. So we're doing a +3 to attack roll and damage. It's pretty great. There are plenty of other weapons you can use, though. Pretty much any one-handed weapon, just dealer's choice. One that's really early in the game in Act 2 is sort of life stealing here, so on a critical hit it just does necrotic damage. It also gives you 10 temp hit points, but it's also a weapon enchantment +2. The Drake Throat Glaive, I'm trying to say grave. The Drake Throat Glaive you also get at Moonlight Towers, which is roughly around the same time as the sort of life stealing. So you'll have access to both, assuming you do things not evil to the Emerald Grove. But in that case, don't worry about that. You can use not a Warhammer. I thought that was the Faithbound hammer that you get from the Goblin camp. But there's Falar Eluve, which you'll just get access to by simply going into the Underdark. It's a great weapon that can carry you all the way to the Blackguard sword because of the Falar Eluve melody. It can either do a sing or a shriek. The shriek will be a bane with a 1d4 thunder damage bonus, which is really cool. or Sing will be a bless. So you can use this to help augment and support your party. A real great option either way. Just use whatever one-handed weapon you want. You could even use something like Blood Elephanter or whatever. It just didn't feel like it fit for me thematically, so I didn't choose it. Those are your weapon choices. They're pretty... It seems slim, but it's more just use whatever you want. There's the Defender's Flail in Act 1 from the Kresh. That gives you a free bonus defense against all physical attacks. There's plenty of weapons you can use. Just make sure it is one-handed or versatile. Now we have a conversation about our armor. So I'm going to go from the head down here. The very first one to talk about, the one I like the most, is Sarevok's Horned Helmet. You gain dark vision up to 50 feet, which is cool and all, but the number you need to roll a critical hit while attacking is reduced by 1. You can't be frightened and cannot be afflicted by other emotion-altering conditions. It just looks cool for the build, too. An early helmet you can get, though, is the Helmet of Smite, or Smiting. When you apply a condition with one of your Smite spells, you gain 10 hit points equal to your Charisma modifier. It's just another form of 10 hit points. You don't want to have too many of them, but it's like the only early Paladin helmet. But also at the end of Act 1 is the Grim Skull Helm, which is great. Attackers can't land crits, and you gain resistance to fire damage. You get Hunter's Mark, which is cool. The Act 2 Flawed Helldusk Helmet is also there, depending on how you approach the Emerald Grove. A really great helmet all the way around. Use whatever helmet makes sense for you that you find that you want to use. You could even use Birthright, which is a funny hat. You know, so this just gives you +2 to your charisma. That's 2 more damage, or that's 1 more damage. Spells save DC, attack roll, whatever it is. This is going to help you out across the board. So you could do this and just hide your helmet if you want. Whatever you'd like to do in that case. Outside of helmets, though, for the cape, I have on the Cloak of the Weave because this gives us a +1 bonus to spell save DC and spell attack rolls, helping us out with any kind of Eldritch Blast, any of our many spells that are status afflicting, hold person, stuff like that, trying to make sure that those actually hit. Also, too, we take half damage from next elemental attack targeting you and deal that damage as a 1d6. But you could go with Cloak of Displacement for disadvantage on attack rolls that target you, or just simply Cloak of Protection for armor class and saving throw. Very, very straightforward. I really like, for the main chest piece, the Reaper's Advance, because it just looks so damn cool. It's super thematic. All incoming damage is reduced by 2. You cannot be moved against your will, but you do have a disadvantage on dexterity saving throws. So a fireball would be a dexterity saving throw. Disadvantage on stealth checks, and you also get Howl of the Dead, which is cool. Let out a bone-chilling howl that numbs all nearby creatures. Numbs their movement speed is halved. The spellcaster has advantage on attack rolls against the affected entity. So you do have that as a bonus action, which is really cool. For the Reaper's Embrace, though, if you go to passives, you can turn off Reaper's Rigidity. So if you don't like that disadvantage to dexterity saving throws, you can just shut that off right there, clicking that button. Outside of that, though, we have the... the other pieces is the Adamantine Scale Mail. You would not use the Scale Mail, you'd use the Splint Mail, which has more AC, reduced damage by 2, and your reeling lasts for 3 turns. But also attackers cannot land critical hits on the wearer. So I would use this or that when it comes to stacking one of the non-crit hit weapons or items. Just make dealer's choice. But you get this at the end of Act 1, so it's very quick access to really strong armor, versus this you get at the end of Act 2. So it takes a little bit longer for this to get online. Then some good Act 3, not shields, armor you can use is the Armor of Persistence, as always. Is probably the best heavy armor in the game. But I was just sick of always using it for all my heavy armor builds. It's here because I know it's a really good one. You gain resistance in Blade War just having it on, and all incoming damage is reduced by 2. It's just stupid good. But there's also the Blackguard's Plate, which is also thematic. You're going to get that the same place you're going to get the shield and the sword and the gloves. All incoming damage reduced by 1 and advantage on wisdom saving throw checks for you. So use whichever one makes sense. I like Reaper's Embrace for what we're doing. Now for the gloves, these are crucial. I think you got to go with these no matter what. Charm or frighten a creature to gain a 1d4 bonus to attack rolls and saving throws. So this gives us a bonus to our attack rolls since we have so many sources of fear in this build. Absolutely crucial. But some other options you can go with here are the Gloves of Battle Mage's Power. When a weapon attack inflicts a condition, the wielder gains arcane acuity. And then Quick Spell Gloves, cantrips that cost an action cost a bonus action instead, so you can use this for your Eldritch Blast. Legacy of the Masters is just a flat +2 to attack and damage rolls with weapons, and strength saves +1. Just other good ones if you miss these or whatever the situation is. For our boots, we have the Boots of Psionic Movement because we are a Gith. This is going to allow us to use a fly, and anytime you cast fly. So if you take the Illithid worms and you get the fly ability, well, you fly and now you do an additional 1 to 4 psychic damage for free. You just simply do it. So, and you also are granted with these boots a fly capability right here. And you can see that just this recycles on a long rest, unfortunately, but just being a Gith gets you access to this, which is pretty cool. Other boots, though, are the boots of striding. So whenever you're concentrating, you get momentum. Also, you cannot be knocked prone or moved against your will. The disintegrating Night Stalkers here for Misty Step. You get the boots of persistence too for freedom of movement and long strider. Just a typical kind of setup for boots. They're all great options. Necklace here, I have the Amulet of Greater Health on, but this just depends on what you're doing with your party, right? This might have an overlap with another character, so please just use any other necklace. There's really a ton of necklaces. You could do the Misty Step necklace, which I think is right here. Yeah, Amulet of Misty Step. The Amulet of Harpers, which gives you advantage on saving throws and shield. The Spellcrux Amulet, as well as the Spell Savant Amulet, just give you more spell slots. So this is a way to turn spell slots back on that you have shut off, so you have more smites. But even, nope, don't use that. That's not going to help you here. But those are all amulets you can use. Pretty much any amulet that fits the bill is going to be just fine for you. Our rings, though, we have the Killer's Sweetheart. So when you kill a creature, your next attack roll will be a critical hit. Once spent, this effect refreshes after a long rest. Other options here are Crusher's Ring and Ring of Free Action. So ignore difficult terrain and cannot be paralyzed. Another ring, the Ring of Mental Inhibition. When a foe fails a saving throw against one of your spells, they gain mental fatigue. So now they have a -1 for as many turns are remaining of mental fatigue. And remember, almost all of our fear checks are wisdom checks. So if we cast Eldritch Blast on something, or we use the multiple tendrils of Eldritch Blast to cast it on multiple targets, and they all fail their saving throws against it, well, boom, now we have a -1 to all of our wisdom, so it's more likely for our fears to go off. The only item I don't have, and I forgot about this when I said I've got all the items, I don't have the Ring of Arcane Synergy. That ring is going to be pretty crucial for this build because it's going to allow you to basically turn your, what's it called? Your spellcasting modifier into an additional damage bonus for your weapon attacks. But you have to deal damage with a cantrip first. So if you don't plan on using tons of Eldritch Blast, then go with the Ring of Mental Inhibition, because you can still get the benefit of using that that spell, using Eldritch Blast to just help deal damage across the board. But this is a different one that's going to make it so that you can make it so your fears go off more likely. So it's just basically dealer's choice, Arcane Synergy, or the Ring of Mental Inhibition. You could go with the Helmet of Arcane Acuity too if you want, but I just didn't want to always use the same exact items that everyone uses for these builds. It's always Arcane Synergy or Arcane Acuity. I'd rather just use an Elixir or something like that. So those are your options for your rings, your jewelry. The last slot I want to talk about is your ranged weapon and your shield. But the ranged weapon here is the Dead Shot for improved critical hits. I like that. But another really good one that you're going to get access to very early in Act 2 is the Bow of the Banshee. On a hit, possibly inflict frightened. Gain a 1d4 bonus to attack and damage against frightened creatures, just like our gloves. So we get a lot of damage bonus from everything being frightened around us. It plays very well together. You just have to actually hit the thing with the Bow of the Banshee. So it's like if I'm really choosing between using the Bow of the Banshee or using an Eldritch Blast, I'd probably just go with the Eldritch Blast because I can get more targets out and for the same amount of action economy. It's entirely up to you. There's also the Darkfire short bow for resistance to fire and cold as well as haste. You choose which one of these bows is going to make sense for you and the other characters you have in your party. If you have a more melee-centric person that wants to deal more critical hits, give them the Dead Shot. Or you want a ranged ranger type of character, give them the Dead Shot. You want more survivability, use the Darkfire. You want to really go into that fear mechanics, use the Bow of the Banshee. Now our last item is the Shield of the Undevout. Use any other shield up until this point, but as soon as you get it, you use this shield because your foes have disadvantage on saving throws to resist your spells or actions that inflict fear. So you will be just dishing out so much fear. Absolutely crucial that you use this shield. One last thing before we show off combat. I was going to talk about the special ability of Shar's Protection, but I forgot that it was not on the Dark Justiciar half plate. It's on the very rare version of this. In order to get that, you have to make a very critical good or evil choice in Act 2 without any kind of spoilers here. In which case, when you have Shield of Faith active, that was the whole reason I was going to talk about Shield of Faith on the character. It reduces all incoming damage by 2 and reflects damage received back to the attacker with 1d4 necrotic damage. The rest of this is still active too. It's just you get that additional benefit. So if you wanted to take that route and do with more reactive necrotic damage, and you're going more of an evil route, the Dark Justiciar half plate that is very rare, that's the distinction, this is being rare, is also another good option for your armor. Jumping into combat, let's have some fun. So I have already activated my Form of Dread Death Knight before jumping into combat, and I've taken a haste potion. This is going to give me, of course, some armor class advantage on dex saving throws, but also I get an extra action to show off some more stuff right now. Just to show off too, my AC is at 24, giving us the +2 from that haste potion. Otherwise, this would be a simple 22. Let's do some things. Let's have some fun. And with that, we could just open up right away with Conquering Presence, Exude a Terrifying Presence, forcing each nearby character to make a wisdom save or become fearful. This plays into that passive that we have right here, right? Aura of Conquest. So if they are frightened, their movement speed becomes 0, and that creature takes psychic damage equal to half your paladin level like we talked about. I can instead, though, use Chosen Adversary, which is a bonus action, which is nice. Just remember, you only get one Channel Oath charge. They replenish on a short rest, so it's cool. Just kind of use whatever makes sense for the situation. Maybe it's a specific character you want to do, or maybe it's just, an AoE fear that we're going to do right here. And I think we can get pretty much everyone. So let's just go ahead and do that. And everyone's fearful, except for this person. And they all lost their movement. They cannot move. And they also got mental fatigue because they failed that condition, right? For my ring. So we have all that activated. I don't know when this passive works. Which is 0, so I'm not really sure if it activates on their turn. We're going to figure this out together. But also, conversely, too, I could use Arms of Hadar right now and just explode out and hurt things. Whatever I wanted to do. We could use our Eldritch Blast. I mean, we have a bonus action here that we can do some fun stuff with. Not really, though. I mean, pretty much the big thing is going to be using Hex on a lot of stuff, or summoning up another spiritual weapon to do some fun shenanigans. Our second wind can come into the fore here. So we do have some fun stuff. And like I said, too, we've got Phantasmal Force, which is a really fun one, too, to add in additional specific damage types. Since we don't have any actual... what's it called? Any actual concentration abilities up. Let's actually go ahead and use Wrathful Smite on this character right here, because they resisted our fear, and I don't want to resist my fear. Of course we miss. Why wouldn't we? That's what I like about this game. You're always gonna miss, but we can try and do it again. Yeah, let's do. I don't have one of these reactions on, unfortunately, so let's just go ahead and do that. Yeah, it worked. Cool. So we can go ahead and frighten them now, but I think they're already frightened because they got hit earlier. And we're just to kind of add in some fun flair with damage. Let's do that. So you can see on the right over here, we hit them with Wrathful Smite, doing 9, 8, 8, all great, but then an additional 7 psychic damage as well here. And then they just took 29 radiant damage from our critical hit Divine Smite. So plenty of damage does come out of this build. It's just not the primary focus of what we're really looking for. Everything here is just not having a good time. Everything is frightened and or fearful, which is quite cool. So let's go ahead and, let's even have some more fun, I think, right? Do I want to? Is there anything? No, we don't have our Channel Oath anymore. We've got plenty of... temp hit points too, so I think we're good to go. I was gonna look at some other fun stuff, but I mean, why not? We could even just throw one of these. We could do like a little bingo, bango, bongo, just to show you that we can, and then frighten all of them, whatever, Legions of Underdark Blessing, so gains 1d4 bonus attack to rolls and saving throws. That is all active. We'll go ahead and end these 2 turns. And, I don't know why they left. Oh, because they're fearful. That's why. And they're outside of my aura range. So now that they're in my aura range, they will not actually move. I forgot about that. Well, I messed up that whole display of saying, like, oh, no one can move now because they're within my range. I've ruined everything. And because my haste just wore off, I don't get an extra turn. So Either way, though, you can see how this build works. We're using fear to control the battlefield. If I had my other two characters over here, we'd be able to take advantage of this, right? And remember, we would just be able to go over there and just slap them down, do whatever it is we wanted to do, try and just finish them off. Tons of ways that we can play with this mechanic. And having that disadvantage on fear rolls is huge. It basically guarantees us a fear of a lot of lower value targets. Keep in mind, though, with bigger, scarier targets, we're not going to be able to fear them as much or at all, really. We're going to have to really focus on them, those targets, with a lot of the single target stuff that this build can do, using a lot of that necrotic damage, using those hexes, whatever it is to really give out any kind of damage that we can. But go ahead and let me know in the comment section below how you might change this build. Would you go with the 6 Conquest, 6 Undead Warlock build? Would you go with a different split, 7-5? Whatever it is, go ahead and let me know. Remember too, we did not go with 5 levels of Warlock because if you are playing on Honor mode, only on Honor mode, you do not get the extra attack from the Blade Pact and extra attack from Paladin. If you do play this on non-honor mode, you can get those 3 attacks that have been really busted before, I think, patch 4 or 5, whenever they fixed it, whatever the situation is. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one. Go ahead and let me know of any other mods you want me to use, and take care.